The last position we're going to have you working in now is called the 6G position. This is a test position that will be used on pipe. We have a pipe in the fixture here already placed in the 6G position. The 6G position is when the axis of the pipe is at 45 degrees to the horizontal. So we have this position in what's called the 6G position. We're going to ask you to make 3 different test specimens for us in this position using 3 different welding procedures. The first one will be using the vertical down technique or procedure with E6010 electrodes, and we've used these before for other pipe welding samples, so you're very familiar with the technique and how they operate. We'll start again on the top of the pipe, and we'll proceed downward with our first pass, as we will with all the fill passes. 4 passes will be required in this Schedule 40 pipe to complete the joint. We'll start, of course, here at the top with a root pass. You'll notice we have a root pass in here and the other 4, and we'll show you how those are put in. We'll proceed downward with our root pass, of course, making sure we obtain good penetration and good fusion into our pipe. After we have the first pass placed in, it'll be properly cleaned, as we've emphasized before, and any bad spots will be ground or repaired as necessary. Then we're ready for our second pass. Now, because of the position of the pipe, gravity will tend to pull this filler metal a little bit down onto this edge of the bevel, as you see here. So we'll correct for that a little bit as we run around with the electrode angle. So we'll tip our electrode to focus and give ourselves a little more force onto this upper leg of the bevel as necessary, and we'll watch this as we go on around. The third bead then will come in here. You'll notice that we have overlapped the edge of our bevel here. We have the proper reinforcement that we're going to want, because this is the last weld we're going to be placing in this area of the pipe. So we'll make sure that we get about a 1/16 crown here. You'll notice that we lap over and come into about the center of our groove. Our fourth and final pass then, after we've, of course, cleaned again, will be placed in here, and again making sure we tie in smoothly with the third bead, tying in again on this edge of the bevel and obtaining the reinforcement that we want. So these are the 4 weld beads that we'll place in this joint. Now, this position is a little bit different, and some people think more difficult, but really it's not, because it requires the operator to position himself just a little bit differently in order to get into proper position to do these beads. So let's give you a couple of pointers here on how this is done. First of all, we'll place the electrode in a holder that'll let me, in a position in the holder that'll let me get into the proper position to make this weld joint. Of course, I'm going to drape my cable now over the fixture here so that I don't have a lot of cable dangling down. And I'm going to start at the top center of the pipe and proceed on around. Now, I'll get my electrode in this position. I'll start up here, of course, on the top of the pipe, as we have before, using the same electrode angle and technique as we would in, say, the 5G position. I'll start my arc, and I would proceed on around the pipe. Now, I'll go just as far on around the pipe here as I can comfortably and still see what I'm doing, maybe down to about the 4 o'clock position here on the pipe, and then I would break my arc. After I broke my arc, of course, I'd properly clean this whole area, making sure the area where I'm going to restart is properly cleaned and ground if necessary. Then I'd reposition myself, and I'll kneel on the floor in this case. I'm going to use my elbow as a support here on the table, or anything else that I can lean on to steady myself. I would start then, of course, where I left off and proceed on around the pipe down at least to the 6 o'clock position. And if I can run a little bit beyond that, I will, as long as I can move comfortably. And then I would break my arc there. Of course, then we have the other side of the pipe to do. With a positioner like this, it's very easy to swing this out into a position then where we can get on the back side of the pipe and do the same technique and procedure as we have here. So we would complete our route all the way around, and then we would come back and start making our fill passes in the technique that you see here. Let's look at a welding demonstration now of one of these welds being made. As this root pass is being made in the 6G position with 6010, note that we vary the electrode angle from time to time to compensate for unequal keyholing on our beveled edges. The angle should be directed to the edge that's not properly melding and away from the edge where it's keyholing too much. The second, or hot pass, is made much the same as previous hot passes. Again, we want to pay particular attention to getting proper fusion in the side walls of the pipe and float out any defects that we might have seen there on the first pass. The third pass is made along the lower side of our groove. This provides us a shelf on which we can place the fourth pass. Note how the toe of the weld laps over the pipe just a slight amount, and we have the proper fill. The fourth pass is placed on the upper side of the groove, properly filling this area. It must also lap over and fuse with the pipe and the previous bead. You've just seen a demonstration of our Schedule 40 pipe being welded up in the 6G position with 60-10 electrodes and the vertical down technique. After you've completed that, we'll ask you to make a pipe again in the 6G position, as we have this one, on Schedule 80 pipe. This will be the heavier wall pipe now, again using 60-10 electrodes as we have been using on the previous pipe. And this time, though, we're going to use a different technique, the vertical up technique. Let's take a look then at a welding demonstration of one of these pipes being welded, then we'll come back and talk about this one we have here. You'll make this root pass in the 6G position the same as you would of any root pass with a 60-10 electrode using an uphill technique. As we put in the second pass, note the weave and whipping technique that we use to control the molten puddle. Pass number 3 is placed along the lower portion of the groove. This makes a shelf again on which we can place the fourth pass, and will help counteract the force of gravity. In the 6G position, it's preferable to use stringer beads rather than weave beads because of the amount of molten metal that we must control. As you deposit these fill passes, keep in mind the number of passes you're going to use to complete the joint and allow room for all the succeeding passes. We have a specimen in the 6G position now made like the one you just saw in the demonstration with a staggered bead sequence that we can talk about. First of all, of course, there's the root pass here that was made now with the vertical up technique, remember, so you'll notice the ripples are a little coarser than what we experienced on the previous sample. And you'll notice that it's smooth and well cleaned and is properly fused in on both sides. Our second pass will be placed, as you see here, again bridging the total width of our groove, fusing well. Notice that we've dug in here very well to tie in with the first pass that we made and wash out any little pieces of slag that may have hung along this edge. And you'll see the configuration of it. It's relatively flat, fused in well on both sides. After we've placed a second pass, now we're going to start staggering our beads in a sequence in order to complete this, because we will need to use stringers throughout this joint in this position. The third bead was placed here, as you see, tie it in. You notice we just about filled up to the top of the groove with this third pass. Again, making sure we fuse in at the sidewall of the pipe and halfway into, or to about the center of this second bead. The next weld, of course, then is placed here. Again, making sure we tie into this wall of the pipe. Remember, as you can see, it wants to kind of hang down, so we'll need to make sure that we use the right electrode angle to hold it up in place. Lapping over now about halfway onto this bead and tying in well to this wall. We'll be able to complete this or cap it off then with 3 more passes. So we'll come back here. We'll put our third weld in place. Notice that we lap over now at least a 1/16 of an inch out onto the face of the pipe. Again, we want to obtain the crown of reinforcement we want because we won't be placing any more weld metal here. We'll come in then and place the next bead right in the center. And again, fusing into the previous bead that's laying aside of it, leaving ourselves enough room over here to place the third and final pass as you see here. So we'll use 3 beads across the face to cap this weld off. And you'll notice the configuration we have here, about a 1/16 of an inch crown. So you'll notice we're actually using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stringer beads around this pipe on Schedule 80 to complete the joint. The next exercise we're going to have you do now will be, again, a Schedule 80 pipe in the 6G position, as you see here, using a E7018 electrode, a vertical up technique. Of course, you remember when we do those, like we've had you do before, we'll use the backing ring, position it in our pipe, tack it as we have before, and then we're ready to proceed with our welds. Let's see a demonstration now of one of these being made. This root pass is being made with 7018 electrode in the 6G position. A slight weave is used on the second pass to properly cover the root pass and fuse into the side walls of the bevel. The third pass is placed on the lower portion of the groove to provide support again for the fourth pass. Pass number 4 is located on the upper portion of the groove, and the joint finished out using the same bead sequence we have in other 6G positions. We have a completed specimen then of a bead sequence done with 7018 electrodes in the 6G position. We used a total of 10 passes to make this completed weld joint, and we've got one staggered here so that we can talk about them. Here you see the first pass, the root, as it was placed on top of the ring. Notice that it's clean, well fused in on both sides. This is the way we want it, flat. Okay, let me rotate this a little bit and we'll look at a couple of more welds. Here's the second one as it would be placed. Right over the first one, fusing into both sides, going right across our joint. You'll notice then that as we start with the third and all the rest of the passes that we're going to stagger those now using a bead sequence as we have in the past. So here would be pass 3, pass 4, 5, 6, and 7. And as we finish up here, 8, 9, and 10. We know we're going to use 10 stringers now in this joint, so let's plan for those as we go on around, making sure we allow ourselves room then to cap this off with these 3 final stringer beads, have a smooth face with the right amount of reinforcement. So that's the third of the weld samples we're going to ask you to make in the 6G position. We'll do the one that we did first with the 6010 electrode, the second one with 6010 electrode on the heavy wall pipe going up, and then of course the third and final one with 7018 electrode using a vertical up technique. These we're going to test now for qualification, and these are the 3 we'll want you to make, so good luck.